Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. This is the second episode of our 3/4 view neck drawing, which is about anatomy. In episode 1, we've covered structure and proportions, which means linear forms, and set the basis of our current drawing. Before we start, let's learn more about anatomy and dive into the scary part of the anatomical names. The hyoid bone. The hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone which lies between the mandible and the larynx. It is suspended and has two large lateral processes and two shorter medial processes on either side of it. It corresponds to level the C3 of the vertebra that we'll see just now. The C3 vertebra, the C4, the C5, the C6 and the C7, all these vertebrae are part of the 7 cervical vertebrae, of which includes the atlas C1 and the axis C2. The first rib. The first rib is classified as both a true and atypical rib. It is the most morphologically different of the ribs and therefore the easiest to identify in isolation. It is the shortest, broadest, and most tightly curved of all the ribs and presents several grooves and muscles attachments unique to this rib. The second rib. The second rib is classified as both a true and atypical rib. It has a similar curvature to the first rib, but is almost twice its length. The main atypical feature of this rib is the presence of a rough prominence to which the first and second digitations of the serratus anterior muscle attach. Clavicle. Then we have the clavicle, which is a long and curved bone. The sternum. The sternum is located in the midline of the anterior thoracic cage. It runs inferiorly and slightly anterior along the vertical length of the thoracic cage. The anterior surface is convex, while the posterior surface is concave. One of the interesting ways to learn how to create realistic 3D shapes is through anatomy. In the first episode of our neck drawing, which I recommend watching to have an idea about the basis of our drawing, we've learned to depict correct proportion through linear shapes. Anatomy here is the pivotal point, which means the bridge between the 2D and the 3D world, simply because anatomical shapes are spherical shapes. Bones are curvy for the attachments of muscles. Therefore, let's start with a simple exercise that helps you understand the spheres and cubic shapes. Draw parallelograms on 3 sides using obliques and parallel lines to create a cuboid shape. Then on one side of the cuboid, draw an oval following intersections that divide our cuboid into 4 equal parts to create a cylinder. Then draw curves on the cylinder parallel to our basic oval. Repeat that process as many times as you can to manipulate the curvatures of our anatomical parts. With that exercise, you'll be able to create curves that help you identify the bulky and the hollow shapes. Notice how hollow curves are opposite or reverse to the bulky curves. This will help you identify the details of our anatomical curvy shapes. There's a relationship between the neck and the remaining of the skeletal system, which means the neck is the binding part linking the cranium with the rest of the body. And now, if you're ready, let's start drawing the anatomy of our 3/4 view neck drawing. The easiest way to attack a complex drawing is to start drawing the big geometric shapes before we get into details. Simplified anatomy is drawing cylinders and blocks, along with the creation of bulky shapes to emphasize on the volume, and hollow shapes to welcome shading and the form of the clavicle that we see in our reference photo. Then we go further into detail, like I said before, by drawing smaller anatomical parts along with bulky and hollow shapes that logically combine the whole anatomical part together. In the main form, the clavicle, the bone that holds the shoulders, is usually longer, thicker, and curvier than the female form. We start recreating anatomy by understanding how the shapes are rounded through careful observation of our bulky and hollow cylindrical shapes. The first and second ribs are part of the thoracic cage that protects our vital organs. They are the shortest of all the ribs. Both ribs are considered as flat bone and rounded. Both are inferior to the clavicle. The sternum, which is the breastbone, is considered as a large bone and also a long bone that is curvilinear. The C3 to C7 vertebra are part of the cervical spine holding the cranium. They are small and round, C3 being the smallest and C7 the biggest. The anterior part of the C vertebra is cylindrical and concave. As for the spinous process located at the posterior part of the vertebra, holds the back muscles. The hyoid bone is a U-shaped bone. It does not articulate with any other bone. Rather, its main objective is the attachment of ligaments and muscles. And that's it, guys. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any comment, just write it in the comment box below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more art inspiration. I'll see you next time. Ciao!